Call
That's what it was. Yep.
I'll call the December meeting of the
Can't be
Land,
on 'cause you
Water,
work where you
Forest
live in the
Resources
city.
Committee to order.
Oh, really?
May we have the roll call, Madam Clerk?
Bruce Paulson,
Here.
Ron Buckholz,
Here.
Jesse Betcher,
Here.
Mark Helbert,
Yes.
Brian Bissonette,
Here.
and Shepard.
Here.
Jim Moore.
Very good, thank you. Madam Clerk, do we comply with the open meetings law?
The meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin Act.
Thank you. Pledge of allegiance, please.
I do allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
At this point, we'll hear any member of the public who has a comment on something that is not on the agenda. Very good. All right. Next item of business is approval of the November minutes.
Make motion to approve as presented, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do we have a second? Motion's been made and seconded to approve the November minutes. Any more discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Greg, we don't have any events or anything that we need to be looking at?
Not this month, no.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And the treasurer is up.
That one application for a parcel in the town of Edgewater. That's all the prerequisites for it. I recommend approval.
Oh, you recommend, you want approval, and then we'll pass it on to the county board.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
I'll make a motion to approve the over-the-counter land sale.
Okay. There's motion's been made and seconded to approve the over-the-counter land sale in the town of Edgewater. Any more discussion? Do you have something?
When you're done with your vote, yes.
Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Motion carried. Yes.
This is my last committee meeting. I want to thank you for your fairness in the past 23 years, and I hope you'll be as accountable to the new treasurer once we know who it is.
Well,
Thank you,
Don't be a
everybody.
stranger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, land records. Surveyor.
Not a lot to report. GIS people have been working, finished up the redistricting and updating our websites. Kimberly's been working on a new layer for our records and for our website for easements, which we get a lot of questions on. I think she said she finished up everything around Sand Lake, and she's working on a Whitefish Lake, just kind of go around the busy areas of the county. Survey crew has been working in the town of Draper, and tax listers printing tax bills. She said she could be done Friday if the last couple townships get their stuff back to her. Otherwise, we done early next week.
So Merry Christmas.
Yeah, everybody would be happy to get their bills. That's all.
Did you ever hire your surveyor?
Nope, we haven't had any more applicants for months.
Send out your whole crew at the same time, or?
Yeah, pretty much. She goes out by himself. I get the help when he can't cure everything. So. Yeah, I don't know. I can try. I mean, January, the couple tech schools that are, have surveying graduates, make contacts and try and possibly recruit somebody. Otherwise, just continue on as we are. So we find something.
So we're feeling the adverse impact of that, or?
Oh yeah, I mean, we're getting way less done with one guy in the field instead of two. It's just, you just can't do everything. So,
Right. Any questions for the surveyor on his report? Okay, hearing none. We'll go to the county forest report. Recreational trails motorized.
Good morning. As I've been saying all summer long, our ATV trails have been busy. Well, it's a change now. ATVs have slowed down in the last month here. Snowmobile, a lot of people are asking about the snowmobile trails when they open up. We have 7 different factions of trails in Sawyer County that we're looking at. So we don't open up all of our trails at one time. The trails on the county forest for snowmobiling are actually open all the time. The Tuscobia is open all the time and LCO trails are open all the time. The Schwamigan, we just had a meeting with them last week. They will let us know when we can open up the Schwamigan. They have to have proper snow conditions for Sawyer County, Bayfield County, and Ashland County. When they open up the Schwamigan trails, they want to open up all 3 counties at the same time. We have the Flambeau State Forest. We wait for them to let us know when they open it up. It's on snow conditions and that for the Flambeau. And then, of course, we have private property owners. So when we have good snow conditions for them, and most importantly for the private property owners, a lot of that is because there are lakes, you know, and so we've got to wait for the lakes to freeze up before our trails that connect them up. We have 20 different lakes that we mark for our trail system. So we're very dependent on cold weather to freeze the lakes up. So everybody's looking at all this nice snow, great for snowmobiling. Unfortunately, it insulates the lakes and the swamps, slows them down on freezing up, and we need those frozen, you know, for our trail system. So Sawyer County's 5th largest county, so some of our trails can be opened up, you know, like last year. We had real good conditions in the northern part of the county, but not in the southern part of the county. So, you know, and then for notifying people when they're opening, we have the Alliance Facebook page. We put on there when the trails are open up, and then as we open up each of the lakes, as we're marking the lakes, we let people know that the lakes are safe to travel across. So that's that on the snowmobile trails. The other important thing we've got coming up in January, the first weekend in January, we have the State Snowmobile Association is going to be attending their directors meeting here in Hayward at Flat Creek. So that's on Sunday they're invited up here for. We've also invited them to come up here snowmobiling. So hopefully we have good snow conditions for Saturday. We're taking them out on rides. We have 2 representatives from every county. Generally, we get 100 to 150 people to show up there for that. So it's your leadership, snowmobile leadership throughout the state that are invited to come up to ride our trails here in Sawyer County. So we're looking forward to hosting that again. We did it 4 years ago and hosted it this year. So
That's it.
any questions?
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have an email from Ben Pop about the non-motorized. The Berkey has, as of today, 10,000 participants registered for the Berkey. They'll cut off the registration at 13,000. The Berkey is working on getting the World Cup Lopet here in 2024. That'll celebrate the Berkey's 50th year anniversary. That'll bring in about 15,000 additional people if we're successful. The solar panels on 00 are in and working. And that is all that he's got. Right, you're up with your forestry report.
Yep, okay, for the month of November, we had 8 active sales. We've actually had a pretty busy month with conditions, deer season and everything, but woods are starting to freeze down good, low snow for a start. Right now we have sold and uncut on file a little over 4.3 million. Sale revenue for November was just over 200,000. Our year-to-date is just over 2.2 million. Sale inspections are on target for activity. No new tracks have been established. The guys have been focusing on field work while we still got really good conditions right now. Recon is also on target. Good Neighbor Authority, we were a little bit off this month just due with deer season and everything, but that'll be picking up if conditions allow it. Nothing new on oak wilt or ash borer. Mountain bike trails, no. Berkeley we covered. ATV, UTV snowmobile trails. We did complete all 6 of our grant projects that we did out earlier this year. So that was a pretty good to get these finished up right at the end here before things freeze up good and hard. So we've got most of our projects off the books as of about last week. Then additionally, parks, I did apply for a tourism capital grant for Hatchery Park. Tom shared some information with me about some of the grants that came out with the recovery funds. The request was for $35,000 put in for resurfacing both the parking areas, the upper and the lower, new asphalt on the lower, new gravel on top, putting in some additional split rail fence, replacing some of it that was broken down, new picnic tables, and we put in for reseeding some of the lawn area around the pavilion where we're getting a lot of the old fish runs are starting to show through in the grass, and it's been ponding a lot of water. So I think we should get word where those grants stand sometime January, February, I think is what the information said. It was a pretty quick turnaround, but we got something in, and hopefully we get something that we can plug into the park there.
Well, I'll be remiss if I didn't ask the question. Are you gonna make budget?
I think so. We should be good.
All right, how much over budget do you think you're gonna be?
Well,
100,000?
No, we're at 2.2 right now. We've got about 100,000 billed out. And we've got a lot of activity going into freeze up. So I mean, we could be over 250,000 over budget, the way it looks right now, something like that.
Is it probably just great work, not bad budgeting, right?
See, I'm trapped. That's.
Okay, any questions for Greg on the horse? All right, you're up with your carbon credit update.
Yep, we've got, I got all of our information into Blue Source. And the next step in the process is they're gonna go through and give us an assessment on what they feel we have for carbon and what we feel that we can be paid, what kind of value we have. So they gave me a timeline of about 3 weeks. So we should have something on paper that the committee can digest. So I'm thinking we should get something here probably in the next week or so. Kind of a long process to put all this data together, but we got it in. Every indication, even talking with their reps, is this market I think is increasing. There's some other players I think that are jumping in on this, so I think we're going to be in pretty good shape with what we have to offer. So we should have a formal document to chew on next month.
Any thoughts on when we would start receiving our carbon tax credit?
Well, they said it's right around about 18 months.
All right.
Is when it's officially out on the market. But in that time frame, they line up buyers. You know, so you pretty much know what's going to happen, but it's something that's 18 months, and then you're on the market, your carbon sold, and we're locked in. So
Perfect.
you know, we've got to see what they bring back, but we got to look at the contract. That's kind of the big issue. You know, it's a 40-year commitment. So we've got some stuff we'll have to dive into and take a look at once we get the numbers back.
So our corporate counsel will review the contract.
Yep.
All right, so will we have something to vote on it next month?
Possibly.
Yeah, it depends on.
It depends on what we get
Corporate
back
counsel.
from Blue Source and how legal takes a look at it. So we're kind of in uncharted waters with this one, so we'll see.
So the process would be this committee would approve the contract and send it out to the county board for
Yeah.
approval?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Any questions on carbon credit? All right, Mr. DNR, you're up.
Wildlife, elk hunting season that closed November 14th for state hunters, so it will reopen December 9th to the 17th. White-tailed deer on opening weekend harvest numbers were up by approximately 10%, and then the reports will be put out in December. I talked with Josh, said he planned on attending the next meeting, so maybe he could have some more information to pass along at that time. Gray wolf. At the last meeting, there was an inquiry. I've been told that any and all inquiries should be directed to Randy Johnson. I have some contact information listed in the report. The status of wolf hunting is currently being litigated in the court system. Fur bearers, all legal traffic seasons are now in progress. and the forestry side of things. In the spring, we were gonna have it scheduled for this meeting, but in the spring, Paul Segan will come in and give this is for your information only, presentation on oak wilt here in the county. Then for timber sale establishment, we have 2 projects that are coming to an end here in the winter blocks.
Any questions on the DNR report? Okay, at this point, I would entertain, excuse me, a motion to go into public hearing to discuss the clean decontamination ordinance.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Go to public hearing.
Yes, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Do we need a roll call vote on this or not?
You can just do.
Okay. All right, so now we are all in favor of going into public hearing?
Aye.
Okay, we are now in public hearing for the clean decontamination ordinance.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of give a little brief history and update on that. So we've had this proposed ordinance here at this committee the last several months. We're at the stage now of holding the official public hearing. You know, if the public hearing and whatever comments and suggestions we get back from that, and if this committee wants to move forward, it then go to the county board. In conversations with legal counsel, this is not a zoning ordinance. It would be a separate conservation ordinance, so it doesn't require the 50% town approvals in order for it to be enacted. With that being said, though, I still wanted to get towns' inputs on it. So I sent that out to the towns last month and got several responses back, all of them being in unanimous support of wanting to have this adoption here at the county level. The town of Sand Lake, and also the Sand Lake Shore Owners Association have sent in letters of support. The town of Spider Lake has sent in letters of support. I had conversations with the town of Edgewater, and they were also in support. So most of the towns, like I said, had submitted something back to me that they were in unanimous support for this decontamination ordinance. Again, this decontamination ordinance is to serve as a mechanism that if and when a decontamination station is available, that those, entering a body of water and exiting a body of water would have to use the decontamination station if supplies are available and if that station is on that body of water. So again, this ordinance is a mechanism for an enforcement aspect of that individual having to use that facility if and when available. Tied with this, then, there is some grant funding for individual lake associations and towns that can use that grant funds to actually install these decontamination stations. So that's my kind of introduction into this, and I will open it up to the floor, and that this is a public hearing, so we'll have to take comments from those in attendance.
Is there
You
any
can
member
come up
of
to
the
this
public-
microphone too.
Any member of the public that's in favor of approving the clean decontamination ordinance that'd like to speak? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Jane Getting from Whitefish Lake Property Owners Association. I am one of the co-recipients of the grant, and we plan to forward the money to the county. It is irrespective of passage of this ordinance. I want to thank the entire committee for consideration of protecting our natural resources. And as a representative of the Whitefish Lake Property Owners Association, we are strongly in favor. Thank you so much, all of you. And a special thank you to Jay for all of his work behind the scenes.
Okay, good, thank you. Anybody else, the audience or a member of the public who would like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Yes.
I'm Warren Johnson. I'm the president of the Sand Lake Shore Owners Association. And as he just indicated, our association has voted in favor of this decontamination station ordinance. And we're in the process, or we have a grant submitted that we would put one in if it is passed. But thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else out there that's in favor of the ordinance? Yes, ma'am. State your name, please.
My name is Donna Carlson. I'm the president of the Grindstone Lake Association. And I too wanted to put our support for this ordinance in place. And on record, we have not at this point had a decontamination station that would be falling under this ordinance, but we are looking at putting a grant in order to obtain one, and think it's absolutely the best thing to do to keep our lakes as good as they are, or maybe even better. Thank you, and thank you, Jay.
Thank you. Anybody else in favor of the ordinance? Mike, go ahead.
Don Stover.
All right, go ahead. Don first?
Don Stover.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, this is Don Stover. I'm president of the Tiger Cat Flowage Lake Association. And all of the members that I have had dialogue with regarding this, we are all strongly in favor of it. I put in about 100 hours of clean boats, clean waters time every year at our landing, and this will be absolutely a big help to all the lakes in this area. There are a lot of people that go from lake to lake, and this is very important that this passes. So we are fully in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Zilmer, do you have a comment?
Good morning, Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner and owner on 2 lakes in Sawyer County. I'm speaking in favor of the decontamination ordinance. Appreciate the citizen and lake association effort that brought this forward to the committee, and hopefully it will go on to county board. And also want to recognize Washburn County Land Conservation Department and the Washburn County Lakes and Rivers Association. Washburn County has already passed a decontamination ordinance in February of 2018. And their land conservation department has been very proactive in providing information on the proper signage and setting up of decontamination stations for those associations who support them. And I would also encourage Sawyer County, who has received AIS grant funds over the years, to support a partial position in the land conservation department or zoning department for AIS education and advice, that with new talent in the department, that maybe there can be wider education and outreach on AIS, whether or not lakes have decontamination stations. So please continue the effort beyond the adoption of the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in favor of the ordinance? Okay, anybody opposed to the ordinance? Anybody opposed to the ordinance? Anybody? Okay, at this point, I'll entertain a motion to come out of open session. Okay, second? Second. Okay, motion is made and seconded to come out of public hearing. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, nay? All right, I'll turn it over to the committee for discussion and possible action.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I've read this and I'm okay with the way it is, and I'm gonna make a motion to approve the decontamination resolution.
Okay. Second to that motion to approve the ordinance? Yes. Second. Okay, so we would then approve it and then pass it on to the county board for consideration. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Motion carried. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. So moving on, we're on the Upper Bruni River Dam project. We're at the stage of approving the plans that our engineer has prepared for us. With potential approval of these plans, we would submit back to the DNR for their final approvals, and which point then we would send out for bids on the project. This has been a year and a half, 2 years in the making, and will still continue for at least another year until final construction work is completed on it. I do have our engineer from Morgan and Parma, Larry Gotham, here to help answer any questions that we may have on it. But this is at the stage that we're at for potential approval for this committee to move these plans onto DNR for final approval.
So in summary, could you just summarize what the project is we're drawing down?
Yeah, so the project right now is, we are in desperate need of replacing that dam. It's been earmarked for, probably the last decade that major repairs are needed to that dam. It's also been flagged by the DNR that we need to do something about this or we have to remove it entirely. At this point, we are proposing for a larger drawdown of the lake level in order to fix and repair the dam at that point. The other alternative outside of a larger drawdown would be a Coffer Dam and sheet pilots that would hold water back in front of the dam, in which then we can make the repairs. That doesn't require the drawdown level, but it would require anywhere from an additional $200,000 to an additional $400,000 to do a Coffer Dam of that size on this structure. And really that's kind of the major talking point of where we're at is, do we want to implement a Coffer Dam, which ultimately the county would be liable for an additional anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000, or do we request of the DNR for a larger drawdown? Now, in preliminary conversations with the DNR, they were concerned about fisheries with a larger drawdown, that there would be more avian predation to fish. When you have a drawdown, there may be depleted oxygen and kill off in smaller pools where the fish would end up congregating with a larger drawdown. But again, we, as the county, has kind of specified that if there was a die off or decreased fish population because of that larger drawdown, we would keep extra funds available for a restocking effort, which again is certainly going to be less burdensome to the county as opposed to the $200,000 to $400,000 Coffer Dam. This has not been finalized or approved by the DNR. It may be a moot point, but this is the request that we want to make to them for that larger drawdown.
And what's the budget of the project, roughly, range?
Just the construction itself is approximately $450,000, and the total project cost was about $500,000.
Okay, we'll get what?
50% back of that.
Okay, a full 50%? I thought there was a cutoff that we
They actually just changed that now. They were going 50% for the first 400,000 and an additional 25% up to 800,000. They now changed that last year and it's 50% up to, I want to say 800,000.
And whether ours would be applicable to that or not, I'm not sure.
I thought Penny told me that it
That could
was.
be.
Okay.
That'd be good if it was.
Okay.
I'll double check on that, but I'm pretty sure we're eligible for 50% reimbursement for the project.
Right.
If it's not 50%, then it's 50% for the 400,000. And then if it's that extra 100,000 to the 500 would be at 25%.
Right, okay. So the choice for this committee, I mean, is we approve sending this out to engineering and bidding without a drawdown, or the committee would recommend that we put in a Coffer Dam costing $200,000 to $400,000 more.
Correct, yeah, and this would actually, it would go to the DNR.
Right, okay,
So we aren't sending out for bids yet. We'll have another process for that.
Okay,
Jim?
yes.
Jay, so with all the fish that would be lost in there, would all the same species be restocked into that lake?
Yeah, we would have to talk with Max Walters at the DNR as far as, what his recommendation for restocking effort would be. The DNR is looking at, their old, bathymetric maps as far as what the max lake depth was set at. There might be deeper pools out there that, they're unaware of at this time because we've never done this type of drawdown on this body of water. I mean, there could be, 15 or 16 foot hole and we're looking at, an 11-foot drawdown. There may still be, 4 or 5 feet of water where there could be, that none of the fish really die off. It could be that we're asking for an 11-foot drawdown and the deepest spot in the lake's 12 feet deep. And now we do have a significant decrease of the fish population. So we would end up defaulting to what Max Walters, the DNR fish biologist, wants to see as any type of restocking effort. But again, to restock, an entire lake, might be an extra $50,000, $75,000 as opposed to $200,000, $400,000. And that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions for Jay?
Yeah,
Yes.
so if they did the drawdown to do the replacement, how long are you talking about? How long of a, would the, be drawn down? How many months?
Probably be at least a 3-month process.
That's a good estimate, yeah.
About a
And that would
3-month process
be-
until the water would start to rise back up.
So the actual construction though is only 3 months.
Correct. Now, the lake elevation will probably be not to full pool, I would say probably till after spring melt. We'd be looking at doing a drawdown in the summer, replacing it, repairing it in the summer. It would start to fill back up in the fall. You would have winter freeze, and then by spring of that following year, during spring melt, that would come back to full pool.
So do the, property owners have any vote in this at all?
They don't, unless the committee wants to accept their potential concerns. This is a county-owned dam, so it's up to the county to decide what they want to do with it. Now, you as a representative of the citizens, yeah, I mean, you should take that into consideration.
I am, because I'm thinking, I don't know how many property owners this would affect an 11-foot drawdown, but during the peak of summer, when people come here for water recreational sports, including fishing, boating, water skiing, whatever else, and now they're gonna be basically unable to do that.
Yeah, the one season, potentially, this coming summer, they may not be able to recreate like they once were because of the significant drawdown. But again, the other option is, there's really 3 options. One is do the drawdown and fix the dam, do the Coffer Dam and fix the dam, or remove the dam and turn it back to a river.
Mr. Bissonette, do you have a question, comment?
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, obviously a Coffer Dam would probably be best for the fisheries in respect that we wouldn't have potential fish kill. But I also understand the monetary part of it. And so the question I have is, and maybe this is directed towards Tom more than anything, but have we looked at, I haven't had a chance to look at the new infrastructure bill. Are dams included in that? Do you know?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the details of that yet. That has been recently enacted, so there's a potential that there could be some money coming out of that. I don't know when or if this would be eligible, but that's something that we can certainly consider for this in future projects. So at this point, we don't know.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it either.
Okay. Do you have a comment, question?
I just got a quick question for Jay. With the Coffer Dam, does that leave it at full pool or does that leave it?
We would probably do
somewhere
a kind of a combination. We would probably still do what, a 4 to 6 foot.
Again, depends what the DNR
Right.
would want. Because realistically, there wouldn't be much difference in cost between leaving it a full pool or taking it down.
Right, you're talking about 12-foot sheet pilings versus 8-foot sheet pilings.
Because a whole lot of that water in there, if you dropped it down halfway, you're taking most of the water out of that whole system. There's the whole, I would bet 75% of it, if you drop 5 feet of water, it's gone.
Gee, how many people, do you have an idea how many people live around that body of water? And if
Yeah, I want to
are
say
there any resorts?
60 or so property owners on what's known as Lake Loretta.
Okay.
Now, the town of Draper, did have, communications with them, and it was kind of split. The town share was in support of a drawdown because it would almost be dual fold. When you do a larger drawdown, you actually kill a lot of the vegetation, and that lake is starting to get pretty choked with vegetation, similar to how they've done the chip-off flowage the last few years. They do the larger drawdown, which kills off the vegetation, especially those invasive species types of vegetation. But then there's the other citizens that live on the lake that obviously they don't want to have the drawdown occur because they do want to recreate through the summer and they're concerned about the fisheries. But again, I mean, that's the tough decision for the committee is that, does the county want to spend an extra $200,000 to $400,000 for the main benefit of those 60 individuals that live on the lake, and maybe another 60 individuals that go there specifically for fishing and recreating that don't have lake property.
And I know with talks with the town, if we do a drawdown, they want to do a boat ramp improvement.
Okay.
The water's dropped down. So yeah, it's kind of a, some are for and some are opposed, split pretty equally.
Okay, all right. Mr. President, do you have another comment, please?
I'm sorry, I just didn't lower my hand, sorry.
Okay, all right. So do you have a recommendation for the committee, Mr. Kozlowski?
Well, my recommendation would be to approve the plan presented to move it on to DNR for approvals.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the committee? Do you want to approve Jay's recommendation, or do we want to do something with the Coffer Dam? Or I don't think we want to take the dam out.
No, we don't want to take the dam out.
No.
I hate to see all them fish probably go to waste, and then the people that live on that lake. I mean, I haven't been up there for quite a few years, so I don't know. I know there's no resorts on it, but I don't know how many people live on it anymore. But I think that big drawdown is really going to have an effect on it. I really do.
I agree. I think it's gonna affect more than just the fish too, and that's all we're kind of looking at, but I mean, there's a lot of other aquatic species there. And I'm thinking about the timeline. If you're drawing this down in the summer and then you start to fill it back up, when, or would you say like October or something like that?
Yeah, and you talked about the reptile and other species that we would do.
October 10th.
Yeah.
I think you have to. So again, we've been working with the DNR on their requirements to fill it back, because you have what they call the reptiles, which are the turtles and the frogs and so on, that they bury themselves in mud. And then if you continue to raise the lake level over the top of where they normally would be, then you can end up, killing them. So how it's filled back would be dictated by the DNR. I have another project we're currently working on, and we had a fall drawdown, and it said if you're not done with construction by, late fall, you have to leave it down all winter. So that's where that one ended up. So that one was drawn down about 4 feet for the whole winter because of the frogs and turtles.
And we could have the same situation here.
Yes, it may be what I'll say a moving scale. In other words, let's say we're done September 1st, okay? Then we can start filling it, and the DNR might say, okay, now today's October 12th or whatever, let's leave it at that level until spring, and then we'll continue filling it up at that point in time. But they would be dictating that refill schedule, I think, if it ran into the fall season.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Hoff, is there anywhere or any more grants or any way that we could come up with that 200 to 400,000? I'm just asking. I know we just did the budget and we had a heck of a time with it. So I'm just asking.
Yeah, there's not any that we are aware of currently.
And right now, I mean, the proposal that we have to the DNR for that municipal dam grant fund is not taking into consideration the Coffer Dam. I would have to make an amendment or change to that grant, and that cycle is already passed. So whether or not they would even consider, if we're set on 500,000, if they would even consider, moving that up to 800,000 with the Coffer Dam to chip in for that 50%, because the grant has already been requested and approved. We just have to do the work. And again, the grant didn't go with the Coffer Dam right now. And I haven't had conversations with them at this point on whether or not we could amend that grant to include for the Coffer Dam.
I specifically asked them that question, and I asked it twice, and I haven't gotten a response back.
Okay, all right. Mr. Hopkins, will you forward the Coffer Dam?
Well, being infrastructure, it is something that would qualify, to issue debt for. So we could do it. It would increase taxes, obviously, but it could be done through a debt issue.
Okay. So then the full county would pay for the Coffer Dam costs.
Right, if it ended up on the levy, which it would increase everyone's tax rates and tax bill, yes.
Yes.
So can we do, put this request forward, you're talking about, and the Coffer Dam?
Well, they're two separate ones, so we have to pick one. We don't necessarily have to pick one today. We do want to keep, moving this project forward. We want to start incurring the cost of this as part of the 2022 budget cycle. So we do want to start moving on it. But the request can't go as a dual fold request to the DNR. It's either the request as presented for the larger drawdown or the request as part of a Coffer Dam. Now, again, if we do that request as part of the Coffer Dam, we have to come up with anywhere from an extra 200 to 400, and it may even be more. I mean, those are rough estimates, and as well as you guys know, I mean, the cost of materials keeps going through the roof, and that's if we can even find the materials or someone that can do the job.
And this would be this coming season?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Kind of building on, your thoughts, comments there, as far as the time frame is concerned. If the committee remembers, the questions from the DNR that we are now answering, those are in the packet that was sent out, and there's a review letter from the DNR. We put together a set of answers for them, and the approach we took in the packet was to not put the Coffer Dam on, which would be consistent with what the county had looked at a couple of years ago. And once the DNR approves that, we have 90 days to go to bid. And as Jay or someone had just said, material is definitely an issue. So the sooner we bid it, the better off we're going to be. Otherwise, what can happen is that if we have problems getting some components, it may go into 2 construction seasons. So that the longer, we wait on making a decision, once we make a decision today, whatever it might be, that is the response that I will give to the DNR. Then the DNR will review it, and they may have a few more questions. If not, they'll approve it. Then after that, we have to go to bid. So if things went smoothly, we would be bidding, let's say, March maybe, and then we have to get it to DNR. They have to approve it. So realistically, it would be a late spring start for construction at this point in time we're in.
And then it's about a 3-month construction period.
At least, 3-month construction period that assumes that the material is available.
Okay, so any more questions? Pardon me, Brian, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I may have missed, so when is the if we forget the Coffer Dam right now, the anticipated drawdown would start late summer?
Late spring, early spring.
Possibly early spring. We would see how we might be able to work with the contractor to do the downstream concrete repair first before we do a full drawdown.
Part of it will depend on when the contractor says they're going to start the project.
Correct.
Because we would backdate our drawdown time from that.
And some of the work may be able to be done downstream without a full drawdown.
Right. And that's part of moving this forward now as well, is that we want to secure a contractor that's going to do this. The longer we wait to post out bids, the more likely these contractors are going to get booked up for the season.
Brian, does that answer your question?
Yeah, because I was trying to, a big drawdown, and I'm probably comparing apples and oranges, because I mean, when you do a significant drawdown, like Jay had mentioned, we do on the flowage, I mean, that really did a good job at eradicating a lot of the invasive species plants that were in there. But it goes back to the fisheries. Now, I don't know. I just wish I knew what, well, in this particular drawdown too, being how it's would be in the spring now, would that because we have always done it in the fall time. Would that have kind of the same effect by doing it early spring like that on the invasive species, the milfoil?
Yeah, because you're still not gonna be back to full pool until the spring of really at 2023 at this point.
So you should get the freeze effects. It will show the water.
One last question.
Yes.
Did you say it was about a 50-50 as far as the landowners?
No, I wouldn't say 50-50. It's probably certainly, yeah, the majority of the landowners would like to see a Coffer Dam.
I want to see Coffer Dam.
Yes, the majority of them, yes. Probably from what I've heard from the town and conversations that they've had, I'd probably put it about 80-20. That would like to see a Coffer Dam, but that, rightfully so. If I'm a riparian owner, I don't want to see my water disappear.
Right.
But again, you look at it from the aspect of, does the county want to or have the means necessary to spend $250,000 to $500,000 to satisfy those wants or needs of the 120 people that use that body of water.
And this is, I'm not being light about it, but this is for one season.
Correct.
Whereas.
Right, and this isn't
that would
unique
fix
to the state of
situation for
Wisconsin. I mean,
years.
larger drawdowns are done throughout the state. And again, those concerned citizens, had the opportunity to come here today, which they're not. Even if they were to, be in large objection, it's still on this committee to make that decision.
So what's the quality of the fishery? There's
right. Panfish, largely panfish, bass, northern pike. There is muskies in that body of water. I'm not sure about walleyes. I'm sure there's some in there, but very few. It's not known as a walleye lake. Majority of people are probably fishing for panfish, bass, and or muskies. And that's not to say that all the fish that are in there are going to die or get trapped in there. With the larger drawdown, when we remove the gates, some of those fish will end up going below the dam, which will go into the Bruny River, which eventually dumps into Lake Winter.
Okay, so what's the pleasure of the committee? To vote to approve Jay's recommendation, to amend Jay's recommendation, include a Coffer Dam?
Can I ask one more question on that?
Sure, go ahead.
So the river itself. So I'm assuming an 11-foot drawdown is going to basically take it down to just the pre-existing Brunei River. What do we know about that as far as what would the width and depth of that river be approximately? Because I don't think that there's going to be many of these deep pools that we're talking about. I think the fish are going to be, they're just all going to go down to Lake
There
Winter.
isn't great data on that. The old DNR maps show that there's some 12-foot elevations.
This is basically the river channel. It's from here.
You're probably gonna end up with what you got downstream.
Yeah, it's not gonna
Which
look
is 30 feet wide. and
This
the
because this
holes
is
are gonna be
the
6 feet deep.
this is the headwaters of the Upper Mooney. It starts just right up
Yeah,
here.
it's just looking at-
So it's not going to be super wide through that portion there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and like I said, there's other species too that I think, we're not even thinking about, like beaver. And I know a lot of people want to eradicate the beaver for the damage they do, but I kind of like having them around. And this would have horrible effects on them because, when they start stocking up and building their lodges and bank holes and stocking up their feed beds for the winter, they're doing that in September and October. And that's when you're talking about raising the level back up, which is going to submerge everything they have built. And then they're not going to have time then. So you're basically going to devastate whatever beavers are in there. And then that's going to also affect, mink, otter, muskrat. So there's just more than just turtles and fish at stake here, I think. And I know that $200,000 might be a lot for a Coffer Dam, but I would still like to see if we could lean that way. That's my personal opinion, Mr. Chairman.
Now when that water comes back up again, concerned about the beavers and such, would that be such a rise that it would affect them like that?
Again, we have, per the DNR's orders that we can't rise elevation after, you said October 10th? Roughly, give or take. So, starting October, we wouldn't be keeping the dams fully closed and allowing the water to rise any further at that point. We would allow ice to form. And then again, when ice comes off in the spring, we would raise it at that point, and that would be again in 2023. Outside of that, if we're able to move forward on this, I mean, there's a chance that we can get some significant water back in there before October even. It depends on weather, and that's always a hard one to predict. We could have, 12, 14 inches of rain in a 3-day span in early September. Now we've raised the water elevation 4 feet right there.
Okay, committee members, anybody want to make a motion? Yeah. We need to keep this moving, right, Jay?
It would be preferred, yeah. I would hate to postpone this for some reason. Not to put you to the flame, but we want to move one way or another. This is a hard decision for you committee members to make. I understand that.
Go ahead, Jesse.
One more question. I don't know if it's either one or the other. Is it possible to maybe lower the level like 5 feet and then put a smaller, less expensive coffer dam in?
There is, but again, when you talk about the difference of the actual coffer dam by doing a kind of a half draw versus a full draw, the only difference is the sheet piling that you use in front of the dam. So again, you're talking about 12-foot gates versus 8-foot gates, and the price differential between that extra piece of steel is very minute. You maybe save 50,
yeah,
25.
They're probably going to be in the range of $30 to $40 a square foot, for the material. So if you got 100 feet times 2 is 200 times 40 is, what's that, $8,000.
And one other aspect of that is if you lower it 5 feet, you're already taking down the lake quite a bit because it's so shallow in so many places.
If you look at that map in the lower right-hand corner, it tells you what percent of the lake at 5 foot water. And I think it's about 60-some%.
So, so you're not really getting your bang for your buck there as far as keeping the water.
Jay, could you quickly explain the difference between a coffer dam and a regular dam?
So you have the regular dam in place, which is impounding the river right now, which is creating that reservoir, which forms Lake Winter. So what we would propose is that, we pull the gates on the dam and let all the water out. That way we can pour new concrete, pour new gates, and actually fix the dam. A coffer dam is basically a temporary dam in front of that dam structure where you're holding the water back in front of the regular dam that's in place. So there's now a void of water because you're holding everything back. So now you're able to do the repairs on that dam structure. You need the water gone one way or another. It's either to draw it all the way down so there's no water in that system, or do that temporary dam in front of it so you can make the repairs and changes to the one that's going to be permanent.
Yes.
And Jay did a good job of defining it. And the type of coffer dam, they have different styles. Most normally what we see is a steel sheet pile where there's sheets of steel that they will drive down. And if it's 1 foot above the ground, for stability, you need 2 feet below the ground. So if you're 12 feet on top, you should be at least 25, 26 below. So nominal is 40-foot long pieces of steel sheet piling. So if you think of like corrugated metal, they kind of lock together. You have some leakage, but not a lot, and that's what they drive down. There are other styles of coffer dams that are not maybe as big. They have bags that they might fill with sand or with water that look like big balloons that they put in. The contractor that bids most in this area doesn't use those. And then for a smaller amount, even a sandbag is called a sandbag coffer dam. So that when he does work downstream on the apron downstream, he'll have to put a small coffer dam consisting of sandbags to keep the concrete dry on the apron of the dam and to do that work. So he will be building technically a coffer dam on the downstream side. It's only a couple of feet tall by sandbags. Whereas on the upstream side, If we required that, we would most likely be a steel sheet pile.
Thank you.
Yes.
So you still have to draw the water down with the Coffer Dam. You know, I agree with Mr. Betcher, but the only thing is that I don't agree with is raising the people's taxes. But Jay, I guess I'm gonna throw this at you. Is there any way we can go ahead with this where you can look and see if you can get the Coffer Dam to, in your grant? Is there any way we could do this? I know we gotta keep this going for you, but.
Yeah, I can reach out to Penny, who's the program manager for the municipal dam grant. And I guess the only other one would be, as part of that infrastructure bill, if any of that can get tied on to that, but that seems to still be, evolving and.
Yeah, just a quick look through the categories. Part of that was to help with the infrastructure, since the ARPA funds didn't include infrastructure. So there is some infrastructure that would be available for counties, but it's mostly roads and bridges. They do talk about some environmental stuff and water, but it's mostly like replacing lead services and that sort of thing, and the western water problems that they have on the western side of the country. So I don't see it right now. There could be other grants. I'm not aware of any, but.
The only grant that I'm aware is the municipal dam grant. There might be some potential cost offset because over the top of this dam is a road. Now that wouldn't be that expensive, but we could potentially get that tied onto that.
Yeah, the road goes right over the dam.
I mean, it's something we can look into, but at this point, I think you would have to plan on, that extra cost being incurred by the county and paid for by the county through tax levy.
So is there any more discussion? Anybody wanna make a motion? So maybe Jay, if I could summarize, what we're dealing with is taxing the whole county, let's say for $300,000. I'm going halfway between your 2 and 4. And the benefit would go to roughly 150 people. And that it would also go to protect the fisheries and then protect the wildlife that depends upon water. Is that kind of the summary?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that you're going to have a full kill off of wildlife or a full kill off of fisheries, but you're helping them have a better chance. Correct.
And on the other side, you would do some damage to aquatic invasive species.
Correct. And what Tim had alluded to as well is that the town of Draper would also look at improving that boat launch, and that's the time to do it is when the water's down. They can pour those concrete or they can slide those concrete pillars further down to the water to make that ramp.
Okay, so that's the pluses and minuses. That's what you have to weigh, I guess. Yes.
So I know you want to move this along. Could I make a motion to in place the Coffer Dam if we can get it covered by a grant? If not, then we do a full drawdown. Can we write it that way?
Yeah, absolutely. If that's what you want, you can make any kind of motion you want. So if that's what you
I
want.
would go second on that motion.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
I would agree.
That worked good. That's kind of what I was getting at,
Then we're not, because
Right.
I hear what you're saying. We don't want to, there's no reason to charge 16,000 people in the county. That's something that's, for 150 people.
Right.
I mean, even if it was to get covered under some grant, the county would still be liable for 50% of that. So if we use the 300,000, the middle ground, you're still looking at an additional $150,000 incurred by the county outside of what we've already budgeted for the repair costs.
And we budgeted 500,000.
Yes, roughly. I'd have to go back to my CIP request. But.
Yes, sir.
And then another question on the motion, is there a time frame on it? The reason I asked that is that realistically, let's say the motion passes, then I would make the assumption that we're not going to have funding. See, so then I would begin the process, sending that into the DNR, that there's not a coffer dam, and begin negotiation on, fish restocking and things like that. And if all of a sudden we did have a coffer dam, then we'd be back almost to square one. And if we want to bid this by March, that's only 3 months away. So I just, but where I'm going with this, if there's not a time frame in that motion, if you don't find something in the 30 days, then we continue. But if you wait 60 or 90 days, now all of a sudden construction may end up being not in next year, but 2 years down the road.
So you're suggesting that we give
Put
a
a 30
timeline, like
30
within
day
30
timeline.
days?
Some type of a timeline,
It's-
so we can
that makes
continue and
sense.
still stay within this year's construction.
Okay.
Could I read back what I got just to see if I captured this?
Yes, I think that would be fine.
Okay, Mr. Betcher moved to use the Coffer Dam option if costs can be incurred in the grant. If not, move forward with the Drawdown Dam project with the decision point being 30 days from now.
Does that give you enough time, the 30 days?
Well, yeah, I'll make a call today to see if I can get a hold of Penny, who's the dam program coordinator, the grant program coordinator, and ask those questions to her, if we can amend the grant to include the Coffer Dam. And if she says, no, we're past that point, that's gonna dead end that right away. And then really the only other one was whether the infrastructure bill could be tied on it, and it doesn't sound like it was for dams.
Not my initial review, and I don't know that we'll get clarification in 30 days. And we don't have the final rules on the ARPA funds, that was 8 months ago. So I don't anticipate, and the infrastructure program also is a multi-year thing, so it might not even.
So I think 30 days would be plenty. I may have it in the next couple hours if she's available for a conversation.
I believe Mr. Betcher's motion is that if you can't get the grant to cover the Coffer Dam, and then we would just go with your option.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. All right. Any more discussion on the motion? We've had a second, I believe, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Good discussion.
Good motion, Mr. Betcher.
All right, USDA report.
Well, there's not much going on because the farming's pretty near over for the year. The final half HH payment is being issued. Payment is limited to 75,000, but only 70% of that will be paid now this month. ARC PLC sign up will begin in January. They hired a new person in the Lady Smith office. She starts Monday. The DMC margin on October's milk was $8.77. That's about it. Oh, we do have a committee meeting today, and we have we're gonna count the ballots for the election for a new county person in Sawyer County.
Yeah.
So we'll find that out today.
Perfect. So that would be the Sawyer County representative for
For the east side of Sawyer County.
or just the east side?
Yeah, because I'm on the west side.
Okay.
He or she will be on the west side then.
Okay, good.
And that starts at 10 o'clock today.
All right. Okay, so get us over in a hurry. Okay. Brian, do you have anything from LCO?
Not really notable. Just carrying on with plowing snow and everything else everybody else is doing. So nothing notable.
All right, thank you. Anything else for the good of the cause?
Just so you hired a new person there. You said a new employee.
Yeah, she starts Monday.
Are you still having some staffing shortages though, or will that bring you up to a good number with the new employee? Because you had mentioned some staffing issues before.
Well, they were having troubles hiring people.
Right.
People just weren't applying for the job.
Right. So are there more openings that you're hiring for?
As far as I know, not in Rush County's office, but there is for like Chippewa, Eau Claire County. Now they're still looking for people there.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
It just needs signatures before you all leave.
All right. Okay, if not, then we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Chairman.
You guys did the work.